Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Thought of the Day. As the Premier is talking about easing the restrictions in the coming weeks, I can't help but think of how the world will be post-COVID-19. Soon restrictions will lift, and that means more flexibility for everyone, and also for Christians to do good and to show the world how we could come together to help each other through this difficult time. Well, friends, if it is any consolation, the early church was no stranger to plagues, pandemics, and difficulties. In fact, according to history, one of the main catalysts for the church's explosive growth in its early years was how Christians respond to diseases, suffering, and even death. The church's strong stance and devotion to humanity and on humanitarianism has made such a powerful impact on the Roman society in the 1st and the 2nd century, so much so that even pagan Roman emperors whinged to their priests that temple patronage has dropped. Pandemics are not new to the world. The early Christians suffered a fair share of it too. During that time, there was no such thing as hand sanitizers, masks, or any test kit to find out if people's got the disease or not. So what exactly did the early Christian do that effectively shook the Roman Empire? And what can we learn from them when the restriction lifts? Well, let's look at what the pagan responses are to pandemics in the 1st and 2nd century Rome. According to Eusebius, a historian and a bishop of the city during the year 260 to 340 AD, that was the time he was alive. Famine and war had recently afflicted the city of Caesarea. The populace was already weakened and unable to withstand this additional blow. The populace began fleeing from the city to the countryside. Huge amount of them. However, in the midst of fleeing inhabitants, at least one group was staying behind, and that's the Christians. All day long, the Christians tend to the dying and to their burial. Countless numbers with no one to care for them. Others gathered together from all parts of the city, a multitude of those withered from famine. But they still help out. Eusebius go on to state that because of their compassion in the midst of the pandemic, the Christians' deeds were on everybody's lips, and they glorify God. Such actions convinced them that they alone were pious and they're truly reverent to God. A few decades after Eusebius, the last pagan emperor Julian recognized that the Christian practice of compassion was one cause behind the transformation of faith from a small movement on the edge of the empire to cultural ascendancy. Writing to a pagan priest, he said, when it come about that the poor were neglected and overlooked by pagan priests, then I think the impious Galileans observed this fact and devoted themselves to philanthropy very well. They supported not only their poor, but ours as well. All men see that our people lack aid from us. In fact, Julian proposed that pagan priests imitate the Christians' charity in order to bring about revival of paganism in the empire. Emperor Julian's program failed because, among other reasons, the polytheistic of ancient Rome was unable to sustain the kind of self-sacrificial love and compassion that Eusebius observed in Caesarea. Albeit, at first, Emperor Julian questioned the sincerity of the newly formed Christian religion. His embarrassment over the pagan charity confirmed pagan efforts fell tremendously behind that of Christian charity, humanitarian efforts, and spirituality, especially during difficult times. Dialed back decades before that, in the year AD 249 to 262, Western civilization was devastated by one of the deadliest pandemics in its history. Although the exact cause of the pandemic was not certain, the city of Rome was said to have lost approximately 5,000 people a day at the height of the problem. A bishop at that time, Bishop Dionysius of Alexandria, wrote that although the plague did not discriminate between Christians and pagans, its full impact fell on the pagans, having noted the difference between Christians and the pagans' response to pandemic. He says of the pagans in Alexandria, at the first onset of disease, they cast their sick away and fled from their kinsmen, driving them out into the mountains like lepers to fend for themselves, throwing the corpses into open ditches and waterways, hoping their homemade teraphims, their gods, will protect them from the disease. They invited pagan priests to their homes to perform rituals, cleansing their homes of the deadly pestilence with their teraphims. Hopefully that the disease will go to their neighbor's house instead. If the pagan response to pandemic was characterized by self-protection, self-preservation, and avoiding the sick at all costs, the Christian response was the exact opposite. According to Dionysius of Alexandria, the pandemic served as a school and testing ground for Christians. In a detailed description of how Christians responded to the pandemic in Alexandria, he writes of how the best among them, the most honorable people, served the sick until they themselves caught the disease and died. Most of our early brothers and sisters showed unbound love and loyalty, never sparing themselves and thinking only of one another. Similarly, in Pontius' biography of Cyprian, the Bishop of Carthage, he writes of how the bishop reminded believers to serve not only fellow Christians, but also the pagans during the pandemic. There is nothing notable, my friends, in valuing merely your own kind. It is even written in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, that even the wicked knows how to give good gifts to their children. But what set us apart from the non-Christians is our love, our care, and charity to everyone, Christians and non-Christian alike. That love for humanity has always been our unique cruciformity and our badge of honor. We need to look no further than the Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul, the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence, and our own parish, St. Peter's Eastern Hill, to see Christ-likeness. Notice how pagans in the Roman Empire, the story above, they emphasized on self-preservation, while early church emphasized on fearlessness, sacrificial services. Does that reminds us of frantic buying up of supplies and hoarding of items in the street of Melbourne only a month ago? Whereas here in St. Peter's Eastern Hill, we continue to feed the poor via the distribution of food packages. I'm very proud that we model Christ-likeness. It shows that we Christians always march in, seeing our own suffering as an opportunity to spread the gospel and to model Christ-likeness and love. Well, may I encourage you, my friends, as we grapple with our new reality post-COVID-19, to emulate our early brothers and sisters and set ourselves apart from the rest. Perhaps we could begin by resisting fear that is leading to panic in various sectors in society, instead modeling peace, love, reassurance in the midst of rising anxiety, joblessness, hopelessness, and desperation. Perhaps we might seek to serve our neighbors by asking if they are okay, or even offering our help to cook them a meal and to leave it on their doorstep. Perhaps we could donate our access to charity to help the poor, or even to say a prayer via Zoom or by the phone, reaching out to someone in need. The beauty is, God's Zoom channel chat room is always open 24/7, and everyone is welcome to Zoom in. You might want to join us, brothers and sisters, for adoration session that happens 3 times a week on Monday, Wednesday,